Hello, my name is Matthew Pillmore. I am the president of VIP Financial Education, and we're a proud sponsor and educator for the Student Association for Financial Education. And I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining these local students in this crusade to improve financial education for our youth, finally. And this is also a way to offer what might possibly be the only real immunity to the next major financial crisis, which is knowledge. And this study is going to determine how many homeowners in this community could prevent in excess of $100,000 in interest costs on their home and other debts. And that's without changing anything other than the way they bank. These are interest costs that you've already agreed to pay the bank for your home and your other debts. Not only does your participation in this community study significantly help your personal finances, but you are also jumpstarting the financial future of a college student by helping them develop their personal financial literacy and business management skills. So everybody benefits. The Student Association is a very important project for us to participate in because many of us, including me, left college with poor credit and very little knowledge about banks and day-to-day finances. So the curriculum these students are now getting through this association is one of the most extraordinary that I've ever seen taught. Before we dive in and show you some of the secrets that are being shared, I want to just briefly review who VIP is and why I'm authorized to even share this information with you. Then I'm going to show you these closely guarded secrets that every homeowner can use to easily flip the script on their banks and begin pocketing the money that they would normally be paying toward interest. So with this approach, nearly anyone who spends less money than they make, meaning positive cash flow, can prevent more than $100,000 in future mortgage interest and other debt costs. Because this education is designed to improve the economics of our local communities and businesses, we do make it very easy to share with people around you that you care most about. So if you like the education and you want your friends and neighbors to also financially excel, as a participant, you'll have the opportunity for 2 friends or family members to get a free coaching session as well. Before we begin, let me introduce you to VIP. VIP Financial Education was initially founded in 2000, and it's been developed by experts who have over 400 years of combined financial expertise. Now, with their help, we've become one of the leading free educational companies in the United States that focuses on liberating homeowners from their debts. I think about all the interest I paid month after month on mortgage payments, and it makes me sick to my stomach. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that you'll never look at banks or money again the same. Viewers in more than 20 countries have written to tell us of the life-changing effect this class is having on them or the people who they share it with. Now, unfortunately, the school systems practically ignore the subjects of day-to-day finances, don't they? I mean, I don't remember getting any classes where my teacher stopped to tell me about the 5 reasons that my credit score might drop quickly, or that banking rules are going to cost me hundreds of thousands too much unless I do something about it. Most of us never really learned how to borrow any other way than we do right now. It was in 2012 that an unofficial association called SAFE was developed by local students in Denver, Colorado, and they collaborated with VIP and other local businesses in order to share this incredible curriculum with other college students. Because so many of the community members utilize the services that are sold by the sponsors of the association, the students can even earn money for tuition and living expenses. So everybody comes out ahead, and we enjoy every second of it. Now, this doesn't mean, of course, that everybody responds favorably to new ideas. In some people, the old-fashioned way of doing things is just too entrenched. I've talked to tens of thousands of people, and not one person likes getting pushed around by the banks. To get anything out of today's class, and this, you're going to need to keep an open mind. By the end of this free class, you'll know one of the best formulas for preventing interest, which you can then pass on to your children and they to their children. Imagine being safe if the economy crashes because you own your home outright. When people lose homes in our neighborhoods, it brings the value down for everybody. You do not lose a home that you own free and clear. Now, as a token of our appreciation for participating in this community study, VIP donates a fully completed cash flow cruncher, which is a tool that will become a large part of your roadmap to emancipate yourself from the banks. If the tactics that we share today begin to feel too overwhelming, VIP does have an ongoing coaching program available to those who qualify. Yes, our company charges for that, but it's only available to those who are able to fast track their results. Now, the information that we teach has become popular with organizations of all sizes. It's being considered a significant benefit to employees. But this is the first time ever that this has been brought directly to homeowners, where eager students were anxious to learn the information and then share it with the community for free. You can see a few of the companies who have had VIP build similar education for their employees. Companies like NASA through FFW, or Remax Professionals, and even the police department. In fact, the police chief, May, had this to say. When I first saw this, I thought, holy smokes, it was very informative and a great process. We love having the classes at the station, and we're really making great progress with our coach. Cannot wait until the next class. To verify our reputation further, I encourage you to see our A+ Better Business Bureau accreditation, and we have an outstanding reputation online. Here's another great testimonial from the program director responsible for bringing all of our classes to NASA Space Center. Actually, I'm going to keep moving through so that we can get to the fun stuff quickly. The whole reason that we teach through the association is because we know of various secret methods that you can bank, which will change your life. And it'll help protect your family from anything the economy throws at you. Because we cover a lot in such a short time, it can make it a little difficult for some viewers to absorb all of it the first time, which isn't a problem. You can go back and watch it again if you want. But to get the most from this training, make sure you turn off your phone and just remain distraction-free. Also, write down your questions so we can cover them during your one-on-one call. Now, today's class is based on real events. Regardless of your current financial situation, the fundamental principles of what we're going to show you will work for you in some way. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, whether you're young or old, whether you're self-employed or W-2'd. No matter what your situation is, there are banking tricks which can improve your circumstances, as long as you put the education to use. If you don't believe me, just wait till you see what happens to your debt during your free coaching session. Because this information can be confusing when a homeowner hears it for the first time, it's important for me to demonstrate through this real-life example. And the Albright family has been kind enough to allow us to share their story. So we're going to review a chronological roadmap of the exact steps that the Albrights are taking right now in order to illustrate just how dumb we all are if we follow the standard terms of any loan. Obviously, everybody has different circumstances, so these tactics will need to be customized differently for you to work safely. So after this demo, just fill out the feedback form. It's only 4 questions, and that will entitle you to that one free coaching session with a certified specialist. And actually, I pick one person out of that group each day to give this free session to personally. So if you respond quickly, we'll go ahead and see if we can't get you on my calendar. Now, it all started when Megan attended a class several years ago that was promoted through Clear Channel Radio. There were about 200 people learning similar strategies to prevent interest costs. And she began by enthusiastically thanking me for, a new outlook on money. And I remember noticing her body language. I could literally see the physiological impact that her money was having on her. There was stress and fear in her eyes. And the whole time we spoke, it looked like she might burst into tears at any moment. I've come to accept a long time ago that money is emotional. It's very hard to separate emotion from our own finances. But here I was, someone who could easily separate the emotion and offer the rational thinking that she was lacking. It turns out that she was scared for a good reason. We learned that she was going through some things. Keep in mind that our typical members are not in bad financial shape, but she went on to tell me that in spite of always being very responsible as borrowers, she and her husband, Dan, lost their home and investment property to short sale during the recession. Furthermore, they had already accumulated almost $50,000 in non-mortgage debts. Well, guess what? Not only did they want to rebuild their credit and pay off their non-mortgage debts forever, they also wanted to buy another home again. They wanted their own home. And there were 3 specific techniques that put them on the fast track. Those techniques were called lump sum payments, paycheck parking, and cash flow stacking. And I'm going to give you an idea of what you'll expect from that call by using Dan and Megan's game plan as an example. You're then going to get your very own complimentary game plan, which will not only save you tens of thousands, but should save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest costs, or we will pay you for the study a total of $50 in cash. To show you just how powerful this strategy is, I'm going to start by jumping straight to eliminating a mortgage. And then if we have time, I'll backtrack through each one of these steps to show you how they did it. This is the point of our training where I'm going to challenge you. You've got to open your mind. You've got to think about interest rates in a different way than you ever have before. Now, we know that typically people have been taught to care a lot about interest rates. And since our schools don't teach about borrowing, do you ever wonder when you first began to care so much about rates? For most people, it was taught to us by our parents and partly by the banks. The problem is that our parents didn't know any better because they were also taught by their parents and the banks. Well, it just seems logical that low interest rates would be preferred. But you may have noticed that the banks continually change their rules, and the rules that they create are typically one-sided in favor of themselves. The bank has convinced the vast majority of consumers that high interest rates are bad and low interest rates are good, when in reality, the only number that matters to you is the total volume of interest costs. The fact is, you don't care that much about the interest rate. You've just never been taught otherwise. The number the wealthy and the banks care about is the total interest amount. And it's this number which will keep our property values high and prevent risk to our communities. Few people could ever buy their home without a mortgage. That's true. And most people know that missing payments would be detrimental to their financial health and credit score. So we pay on time, and sometimes if we have extra, we pay a little more. What many people don't realize is that debt of all kinds carries a heavy, heavy price, even if that debt has a low interest rate and is within their means to pay. The United States cannot force anyone to loan us money, and the interest that we pay can become more expensive. If private investors or foreign governments are unwilling to lend the U.S. money, the government can just go to the Federal Reserve, and the Fed literally creates money out of thin air by just printing more, and then it lends it to the government. But creating new money has a catch. Inflation. Printing money can lead to a vicious cycle as inflation devalues the money already in the economy. Now, if that happens, our personal expenses go up, which we're already seeing. However, our individual income doesn't increase with inflation, which means that if you don't change something, your household cash flow will eventually get worse. So what control does our community have exactly? Well, more than you might think. What if you could make the same money but prevent a significant portion of your interest and tax costs? If there were no downsides, wouldn't you choose to pay over $100,000 less for your home? I began to accept that I couldn't control the national economy, but we can all control our own households. And if we each do, our entire community is happier and safer. There's no way to have debt and be safe. So I learned how to quickly create a plan to rapidly eliminate it all so that you can handle any cash flow challenges and unexpected costs that life throws at you. When you got your current mortgage, you signed a document known as the Truth in Lending Statement. And it's an awful document to look at because it reveals the total interest that your mortgage will cost you. For some, this is actually the first time that it becomes obvious that even with a low interest rate, your mortgage loan is very expensive. Take our friends Dan and Megan, for example. They'd pay more than $283,000 in interest if they follow their loan program for the full 30 years, which is 360 months. During your free coaching session, we'll review how much total interest you're about to pay and how to put it back in your pocket. Now, this means that the total cost to own their property, if it took them 30 years to pay it back, is over $500,000. That's the $290,000 in principal and $283,000 in interest, which is close to $600,000. That is ridiculous, isn't it? Most people aren't aware that there are several ways to prevent as much as 80% of this interest cost. The one that I'm going to show you today is the easiest for many of our coaching students to follow through with. And remember, the key to finding the best plan is finding one that you can remain consistent with. That's why a lot of people prefer having help, so that they can stay accountable and do it easily instead of feeling overwhelmed and trying to learn it as they go. As you know, it doesn't matter how great the plan is if you don't use it. So Dan and Megan, like most people, really want to own their own home without a mortgage. They realize that by keeping the interest for themselves, they'd be able to significantly enhance their lifestyle, spend time with family, travel, and give back. They also wanted to continue acquiring new investment homes. They focused on leveraging debt weapons. You'll better understand the concept of debt weapons by the end of this training. And we'll also show you what you need to know during your free session about debt weapons. All participants of this study also receive a free access pass after the free coaching session to other trainings that will focus on specific types of debt weapons. Now, throughout the first 3 years of working with VIP, Dan and Megan were shown how to acquire over $78,000 in various debt weapons. One was a $25,000 unsecured line of credit, which they learned to use in a way that flipped the script on the mortgage lender. Now, before we could show them how, we had to calculate the average cash flow, which the cash flow cruncher did for us. Dan and Megan's combined monthly household income averaged approximately $5,950. And remember, we're starting with the last step, which means they just have this brand new home and new mortgage, and their new mortgage payment, along with living expenses, averaged approximately $3,925 per month. Now, if you take their net income of $5,950 minus the $3,925, the total cash flow each month on average was approximately $2,025. Now, once we know cash flow, we can calculate the lump sum amount, which they could safely and comfortably borrow from their debt weapons without harming their credit scores. We calculate the best lump sum amount for your personal household during that free coaching session as well as a second part to this study. Now, in case of the Albrights, we determined their ideal lump sum amount should be $20,000. The first step they took was to apply this lump sum payment of $20,000 towards their new mortgage. This reduced their mortgage balance to what? Approximately $270,000. However, you probably noticed that it also creates a new $20,000 balance on this debt weapon, which they're going to need to pay off. Otherwise, they just have the same amount of debt as they did before. It's just balanced differently. So let me show you what happens to that payment and the interest costs that are associated with it when they start leveraging a technique called paycheck parking every month. This prevents their money from sitting idly in a checking or a savings account where it's only working on behalf of the banks. This means that they will deposit on average $5,950 against this balance each month. And this one strategy compresses the average daily balance of the debt weapon throughout the month and reduces the amount of interest that the bank is able to compound from this account. It also puts all of their income to work for them nearly every day of the year. So they're effectively earning the same rate of interest that they're preventing by parking the income until it's needed to pay expenses and bills. When the funds are needed, they simply leverage the debt weapon for needed funds, and they treat that debt weapon the same way they would their checking or savings accounts. Now, when this is done correctly, it in no way increases risk because they are never taking on more debt than they originally had. Let's run through it quickly so that you can fully sink it in. Instead of Dan and Megan depositing their $5,950 into their checking account, they make one small change and they paycheck park it into the debt weapon. In the first month, they use their $5,950 income and bring that balance of $20,000 to approximately $14,050. At the end of the month, they again leverage the debt weapon to pay their personal and business expenses of $2,325, which increases the balance of the debt weapon to approximately $16,375. Now, in the second month, Dan and Megan just repeated the process that they followed in the first month. But now they've entered into something called full cycle. Full cycle just means that each month from here until the debt weapon balance is paid back, the Albrights will paycheck park $5,950 into their debt weapon, and they'll pay the total of $3,925 in expenses. So every month that passes, the cash flow of $2,025 just remains parked against that remaining balance on their debt weapon. So it's available for any reason if they need it. So now we just simply take the remaining balance of that $16,375 after month one, and we divide it by the cash flow to calculate the total remaining months that it will take for the paycheck parking to pay off this debt weapon in full. And that total is 8.1 months. Now let's account for the first month that we reviewed, making the total now approximately 9.1 months. And finally, we can't forget to factor in the interest costs that we're accumulating on this balance during this 9-month period. For example, we'll use a relatively high interest rate of 10% or approximately $1,000. Now, the banks typically charge between 7 and 10% interest for the best debt weapons. So it's important that we are conservative in order to prove the point that borrowing with higher rates over a shorter term can result in significantly less interest out of pocket, which means that they can pay off that lower interest rate mortgage with a higher interest rate debt weapon and still prevent shocking amounts of long-term interest on that 5.2% mortgage debt. Let's see exactly how much interest. Let's use the VIP Cash Flow Cruncher spreadsheet to look at the mathematical impact of this one strategy. And we'll use the Cash Flow Cruncher loan calculator page for this. As you can see, I've input their balance here of $290,000 and their interest rate of 5.2% here. When I plug this in over a 30-year term, the total interest is the same that we saw in that truth in lending statement of $283,271. Now, it's easy to see how the amortization schedule is designed to increase our principal very slowly each month. Let's see what happens when Dan and Megan apply the first $20,000 lump sum payment from their new debt weapon. Pay close attention to the total interest saved. You can immediately see that by leveraging their debt weapon just one time, Dan and Megan were able to prevent $64,398 in interest on this mortgage. That's with one move. And look down here. You can see that it's rapidly accelerating that principal contribution. Now watch what happens when we apply another $20,000 lump sum in month 11 after they've paid off the first lump sum amount. And you can plainly see that this will prevent $111,000 in interest. Furthermore, nearly 8 years have been eliminated off of that mortgage in just 11 months. The best part of this is that this was achieved by using a tool that the banks provided to them. Now, would you trade $2,000 in interest that you would pay toward a debt weapon in order to prevent $111,000 in interest on a loan with a lower interest rate? Of course you would. It makes you wonder why we aren't being taught this in school, right? These and other techniques work whether you've been in your mortgage for 10 years or 10 days. They also work if you have a 15-year loan or want to sell your home early. Let's quickly review the same example using the visual of your typical mortgage amortization schedule. The red displays the total interest, and the gray, the principal of each month throughout a loan term. Some describe this as the most insidious device ever created by mankind, because as you can plainly see, the interest is paid at the beginning far more because your loan amount is so large. And because Americans are told that it's okay to replace their mortgage with a new one every 3 to 7 years, according to the National Association of Realtors, the vast majority of a mortgage payment for the average homeowner in your neighborhood is going toward interest cost, regardless of the interest rate. So what happens if we use the lump sum payments and paycheck parking techniques instead to reduce the mortgage balance by $20,000 every 10 months? We end up leapfrogging down this amortization schedule, saving substantial amounts of interest by chopping it into pieces. Watch the result of repeating this process until this one mortgage is paid in full. The original balance, producing a $283,000 interest amount over 30 years, is now just $72,500. That's right. Look at that difference. That means they're able to save a total of over $210,000 and avoid over 21 years of payments. Now, obviously, results vary. So how does this plan compare to yours? If you don't know, we're going to figure that out together on the phone. So let me ask you this. Does it ever make sense to keep a mortgage, even just temporarily, in order to exploit greater returns or maximize investment strategies? Of course. And we'll review that closely during your private call as well. So now you've seen the plan created to pay off Dan and Megan's real estate. And that's when they started to invest in rental properties, which drove their cash flow higher, and it just accelerates the cash flow stacking concept. I mean, the more cash flow that your household can generate, even with the same income, the faster the results take place and goals can be achieved. Now, they couldn't have ever gotten to this stage had we not first designed an effective plan to get rid of all of their non-mortgage debts. So we had to do that first. Don't forget, we're going back in time here. They had almost $50,000 in non-mortgage debt, and they wanted to avoid as much interest cost on that. So let's cover just the basic principles of quickly paying off non-mortgage debts, and then we'll save the specific blueprint for your personal confidential call. That way you can see it in action on debts that you actually really want to get rid of once and for all. Now, in the mortgage elimination example, the techniques that we highlighted, again, were called lump sum payments, paycheck parking, and cash flow stacking. But there are many different techniques that are used depending on your circumstances. For example, there are 17 techniques that are used to maximize credit scores. So if your credit scores aren't perfect, that's okay. There are 34 to drive cash flow higher. We use 28 to reduce or eliminate debt, and we've identified 16 categories of debt weapons that we research every day. This means that there are millions of combinations between these. The reason I bring this up is because we've never seen two game plans that are identical. Don't use the exact same technique puzzle that we're building for Dan and Megan, because it's not going to work the same way. That's why we've included the free private implementation counseling session with this community study in exchange for your feedback form. We don't want you to practice these strategies the wrong way and end up hurt. So let's say that you have debts other than your mortgage. There are 4 factors that you need to be considering to pay those off quickly. The first is rarely taught. It's called target rate. Now, the target rate has nothing to do with the interest rate. Target rates are calculated by taking the minimum payment on any debt and just dividing it by the balance of that debt. The higher the target rate, the more money you spend each month in relation to that balance, which means that you gain the most cash flow from that account when it's paid off in full. The cash flow cruncher spreadsheet that we give you after your call will calculate this number easily for you. We'll know that number by the end of the call. The next factor to consider is the type of account. For example, a revolving account, such as a credit card, will reduce your minimum payment relative to your balance, whereas an installment account like an automobile loan does not. And this will play a role in your planning process. The third factor is the impact of credit scores. If something is going to have an adverse effect to your credit scores, it's often encouraged to take another approach. And the final factor to consider if you want to pay off your non-mortgage debts quickly is that of interest rates. As you're learning here today, interest rates rarely matter as much as the banks want us to believe they do, but they do still play a part. We'll be considering all 4 of these factors as we walk through your game plan during that one-on-one phone portion of the study, and you can finally then have a plan to get rid of those debts forever. Remember, we're going backward in time here, so this was before they bought their home, and at this stage, Dan and Megan were very nervous about their family's safety because they had accumulated this almost $50,000 in non-mortgage debts. And that was just trying to keep their home during the recession, which unfortunately didn't happen. And this debt was costing them $1,135 on average each month. Now, even though they didn't yet have a new mortgage, they were anxious for us to help them get out from underneath this burden. At this time, they had the same average tax income of about $5,950, and their rent payment was the same as their new mortgage down the road at $1,600. So with the debt servicing, their expenses totaled about $5,050 on average each month. We start by calculating their average cash flow by taking that income of $5,950 and subtracting the $5,050 of expenses. That means Dan and Megan's cash flow was about $900 every month, which was up quite a bit from the $400 in cash flow when we first met them, but it was also a far cry from that 2025 cash flow that they end up getting to next. Now let me ask you, had Dan and Megan continued doing what they were doing, how long do you think it would take them to pay this off? Almost everyone agrees that it would have likely taken more than 10 years, if ever. So just don't fall into that trap. They might have continued accepting that debt was just a normal part of their life. Have you ever thought about the total interest that you've spent in the last 10 to 20 years and how different your life would be if you had most of that back? After applying lump sum payments and paycheck parking, it took Dan and Megan just 30.9 months to pay off all $49,900. It also took the Albrights about 5 months previous to that to initially drive their credit scores up and acquire their first debt weapons. So in total, this outcome was achieved in less than 3 years. It took 3 years to pay off $49,000. Take a look at their progress over that period. Luckily Dan and Megan changed the way that they did things, and this was a result of their new plan, which is what we hope to achieve for homeowners throughout the community. You may owe $5,000 in debt, or you may owe $500,000 in debt. It does not matter. There is almost always a better way to eliminate years of interest and stress by identifying missing tools in your plan. And if you're enjoying this information, please start thinking about who could benefit by sharing, because you'll have the opportunity to share with 2 people and get them a free coaching session as part of this study too. Now, we've been talking a lot about debt weapons, right? So this is a good time in the training to see exactly what debt weapons are and how they can help the average person accelerate most financial goals. You see, debt weapons are often free and they can put anyone on the fast track, whether it's investing in real estate or having better financial safety. Maybe you want to travel, grow a business, grow a family, put your kids through school. Debt weapons can help with that, and they're available to anybody. Earlier, you saw how Dan and Megan constructed their plan to avoid over 250 mortgage payments on their home and pay off almost $50,000 in debts using these tools. But the techniques that they used and many others would never have been possible without proper debt weapons and proper utilization of those debt weapons. So we've studied these for years. Over the past 12 years, we've studied 16 different categories of debt weapons. which accelerate financial goals, and having a basic understanding of these prior to your free session is important. Let's start by asking this: what the heck is a debt weapon? Simply put, debt weapons are tools that allow you to keep your money working for you in a variety of ways, nearly every single day. Literally anyone can experience great benefits from these, and we don't sell or profit from the most common debt weapons. We just simply coach people how to find them and what to use them for. So what does this even mean to you and your family? Well, there are 7 primary reasons to look for and use debt weapons from this point forward in your life. The certified specialist will show you how these work with your debts and goals during that second part of the study. And if they can't benefit you, you'll even earn up to $50 just for participating in this study. But the main benefits include rapid increase of cash flow. The most common reason that people care about their financial health is for peace of mind and freedom in order to have choices in life. Cash flow equates to choices. Without cash flow, choices are very limited. With it, they are abundant. So if you want freedom, you need cash flow. You will have a clear understanding of your cash flow when we complete the Cash Flow Cruncher and provide you a free copy that's completed after your call. Now, as you've seen today, debt weapons compress amortization schedules as well, which allow you to pay off your loan balances in a fraction of the time. They'll also allow you to replace the inadequacies of your bank accounts. When you think about it, bank accounts are not used because they pay you well. They're used because they're convenient. They're also safe and liquid. Debt weapons are safe, liquid, and convenient as well, but they put your money to work. They have a far greater monetary value to you. They also help you invest more quickly. For example, you can use them as down payments, you can use them as fix-up costs, you can use them as a source of capital, you can invest in education, you can invest in coaching, you can invest in both typical and non-conventional opportunities. They can be used for marketing or staffing a business. Debt weapons seemingly provide endless uses as vehicles. They minimize total interest costs. When used properly, and as demonstrated, debt weapons can prevent as much as 80% of total interest costs, and they drive your credit scores higher. For example, some debt weapons even let you hide various balances from your credit reports, which causes an enormous positive impact to your credit scores. Finally, access to debt weapons can cause tremendous safety for you and your family. As long as you can remain responsible and invest, there are no downsides to having them. So let's talk about specifics. Here are some examples of debt weapons that we refer our coaching members to on a daily basis. The top half includes debt weapons which the banks themselves provide, and the bottom half are examples of debt weapons provided outside of the banks. And both lists change often. They are added and removed as the banking industry modifies itself. So debt weapons generally offer more than one benefit when used properly, although they don't necessarily all achieve the same results. Because they do change so frequently and we have limited time in this study, we've put definitions of these acronyms in the Cash Flow Cruncher that you'll get when you complete the coaching call. Also, debt weapons in gold have been made into additional classes, and free access to those will be provided to you also at the end of that call. These tools can benefit anyone. The 4 most important questions that require an answer to get a benefit from these before you should even search for one include: which debt weapon should I get? Where should I go to get it? When is the right time to apply? And what purpose will it serve once I have it? VIP does spend extensive time updating this information, and we get updated directly from the banks every week to answer these questions because the answers change just as often as the bank rules do. Now, we have an entire interview process that we've created over the last 10 years, and we've agreed to share this checklist with you following your free coaching session in order to benefit from debt weapons as well. One of the most common qualifiers that we've found between debt weapons is that you must first have a 700 FICO personal credit score before applying for one. With a 700 credit score or better, you can typically obtain between $2,000 and $150,000 per debt weapon. Now, it's best to get 1 to 4 debt weapons each year. We can accomplish many of the same results with fewer than that, even if they're not large in size. There are a handful of debt weapons where your credit score does not play a role, and one in particular called the infinite banking concept I'm a real big fan of and can be incredibly powerful, and we'll steer you towards a free education on that after your call. Now, I'd like to warn you that you got to minimize the credit available to yourself if you're not capable of being responsible. If you are financially responsible or you believe that you can be with help, there's no such thing as having too much credit. Some financial experts argue that you should cut off the available credit that you have to yourself, and that's just simply not beneficial to you. That available capital helps you achieve your goals more quickly, and it also protects your credit scores. The most popular benefit of debt weapons is safety. People just want to feel safe, including you, which brings me to the point of emergency reserves. Whether there's a medical issue or the need to suddenly repair your home or even replace your car, experts agree that you're going to need access to reserves to protect yourself from those unforeseeable circumstances. During your free session, we'll teach you that your money does not have to sit unemployed in a checking or savings account in order to be available for emergencies. It can protect you even better through debt weapons. The last thing that we need to touch on today before looking at how you use this information is the mysterious and often confusing personal credit scoring system. I'm going to minimize this section for now. And if you determine your credit scores are not perfect, we'll go from there and go over the specifics during your individual session. But over the past decade, we've been responsible for providing people with less than perfect credit access to the 760 Club. Now, the 760 Club has been called one of the most advanced credit scoring education and enhancement programs in the country. We first created this with the assistance from Edward Jameson, who's widely recognized as the leading credit attorney in our country, and with the help of John Alzheimer, who was one of the original creators of the first credit scoring system through FICO. Without proper education, most consumers aren't able to leverage their credit properly. Knowing how to read your credit map can be very empowering. If your credit scores are not as high as you'd like or need them to be, you can take steps to improve your creditworthiness. And if it's high already, you really want to make sure you're taking key steps to protect and leverage it in order to reach your goals far more quickly. To qualify for the best loan, borrowers generally need a score above 760. And people who want to play by VIP rules will need the 700 minimum, as discussed earlier. When we met Dan and Megan, their scores were low because of those short sales, which is okay. It just meant that we needed to help them focus on those first and improve them. With some basic education, they managed to increase their scores in less than 3 months. Simultaneously, they worked on plugging leaks in their cash flow cruncher. Plugging leaks just means within several areas of spending, you can evaluate ways to preserve your lifestyle but spend way less money on it. We call this strategic budgeting. This is where things like promotional interest costs and more advanced techniques that we're reviewing today come into play. It also allows you to enjoy the same or better lifestyle, but just have more money at the end of each month. It's very rare when a community member cannot plug at least $100 per month in leaks, and sometimes it's over $1,000. The exciting news is that the money saved is actually worth 3 to 5 times its face value because of the interest that can be prevented through things like lump sum payments and cash flow stacking. Let's spend the last few minutes taking a look at what it means to take this information to the next level where it's working for you, because you've got to put it into practice now. Every financial household in our community is different. So I learned quickly that understanding how to implement new banking methods for your own personal circumstances is critical. To do so, you've got to know what solutions are even available to you. And then you've got to take proper steps to select solutions that are compatible and easy to remain consistent with. Over the past decade, we've reviewed and critiqued program after program, everything from books that cost $20 up to coaching services that cost almost $50,000. And nearly all of them offer some benefits. So how do we know where to turn and put our household in a safe place? Because keeping our community safe is the very reason that we're conducting this study. We believe that almost everyone in this neighborhood can prevent over $100,000 in interest. But first, we compiled a list of deal breakers. The first thing is, are you capable of taking practical, reasonable steps if shown how? If you struggle to put advice into practice, any possible solution will likely be a waste of your money, regardless of how much potential the solution has. Does the product or service that you're wanting to pay for have proven results and a positive reputation? If not, don't move forward. Thirdly, is it going to push you further than you can push yourself? If you're not content with the results that you've achieved to this point, what is going to change moving forward where you don't look back and say, oh, I should have or I would have? Number 4, will the cost of the program generate a return on your investment that exceeds your definition of value? Remember, education and technology or support and coaching, they're no different than any other investment you make. Quantifying the expected return on that investment is the key. And Dan and Megan spent over $4,000 for our coaching, but their plan is going to save them nearly $250,000. That's a no-brainer. Now, will the company refuse a sale if the program doesn't meet your needs? An easy way to pre-qualify a solution that you're considering is to first identify the agenda of the company and then determine, hey, is this somebody that people are willing to refer? And finally, does the company stand behind their claims? If a company is willing to make predictions or speculate, are they also willing to put their money where their mouths are? Of course, your inability to take action on qualified advice could easily lead to missing the target, but if you hold up your end of the bargain and still miss the mark, are they willing to mitigate your displeasure? This qualifier will say a lot about a provider. Now, before you begin feeling overwhelmed, we're going to help you decide the best solution for your needs, whether it's our coaching program or not. We don't pay any of our specialists a commission, which means that you can enjoy the confidential free game plan without feeling nervous about being sold something. The specialist conducting the study only recommends our coaching to those who we know are certain to get extraordinary results. Over 40% of people who participate in the study aren't even qualified. So you don't have to worry. Now, to help you get out of debt quickly, you're going to need your own cash flow cruncher spreadsheet. So as a participant of this student project, all homeowners that get their free one-on-one coaching session are given a fully completed copy of this spreadsheet after the call. During your free session, the specialist is going to help you determine which of the tools will work best to accelerate your goals. As you can see through this study, you're going to make a lot of headway without investing any money at all. For those who are qualified for our coaching and want to fast track their progress, we'll provide an unlimited number of phone coaching sessions over the course of 2 years. And over that time, we work together about once every month to break the confusing process of eliminating debts into these small little steps. Every custom step is detailed in your cash flow cruncher following every coaching session. And on average, our members apply 2 to 4 hours each month having a session and completing their steps. Once each step is completed, another session is easily scheduled online, and your designated coach will call you at that exact requested date and time. Don't worry if you have less than perfect credit. If you don't yet have the credit scores you want, we work with several of the credit scoring pioneers, including John Olsheimer, as I'd mentioned, to give you the education you need and steps to drive your credit scores higher at the fastest pace. Now, we can cover the laundry list of qualifications that our coaches have if you're curious during your session. The key point is our success ratios and accountability to following through and realizing amazing results are far more effective than other options. And in many cases, we charge a fraction of the price of other comparable programs. Whereas many coaching programs can cost almost $50,000, our 2-year membership only costs a little over $5,000. And as a participant in this study, you're even given a significant discount, which we can discuss if you are even qualified. For business owners, this is typically a tax-deductible purchase, and it includes in the price an entire bundle of marketing benefits for your business. Now, because we are building better personal economics for our neighborhoods, we do guarantee satisfaction to ensure that our level of integrity is always at its highest. Therefore, when homeowners are qualified, the VIP solution is often preferred over other programs. Keep in mind, even if ongoing coaching is not something that you're presently qualified to receive or you just simply don't want it, you don't have to be concerned. The free coaching session will be totally unsolicited, and you can expect to receive the highest level of expertise, professionalism, and value during your participation in this study, which will ensure an excellent experience either way. We encourage you to make the most of the resources that we provide you and reach for your goals. Regardless of your current circumstances, you have all the control that you need to build and live any lifestyle that you desire. You just need to learn how. If by now you've found some value in this education, please share the website with your neighbors. All participants in this student project will get access passes for 2 loved ones to get free coaching sessions as well. And if we can't save them at least $100,000 through our demonstration, we'll also give them $50 for participating. In a volatile economy, look, we've got to break the cycle of government dependency, and we've got to help one another access this knowledge, and we should have been taught this in school. Please follow the prompts, provide your feedback about the local student education and the education itself in order to lock in your free session. And because we do provide those free sessions as a courtesy to thousands of people, it's available on a first-come, first-served basis. So it's always subject to availability. We can only reschedule sessions on an exception basis, so don't miss your chance to save tens or even hundreds of thousands and keep our neighborhoods safe. Don't cancel your session once it's scheduled. It may be your only chance. For any questions or feedback, please call toll-free 866-969-2738. Thank you very much. We look forward to our conversation coming up.